So here I am with the most likable man in MMA, Jose Shorty Torres. How we doing, my man?
Somehow I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. So I think that's a good sign. What about you?
Yeah, all good, my man, all good. So talk us through your quarantine at the minute. What's your setup? Are you still training at all? Are you binging? Are you video gaming? What are you doing?
I'm definitely doing all the above. I'm still training as hard and actually being a little more productive when it comes to training because I get more personal time, more privacy because I do live upstairs at American Top Team. So I live in the gym. So during this quarantine, when businesses in Florida weren't allowed to have people inside, I lived there. So
So then
everyone
what?
upstairs would just go downstairs, get more work. Coach or two would come in and we'd be able to get hands on stuff. So I've been getting a lot more personal and private time, which is awesome. But now everything's starting to pick up, again because of the UFC. So I've been Edson Barbosa's main sparring partner for a couple weeks now, and it's been really really fun. And yeah, I'm happy. So it's training wise, it's been great. It sucks because nothing's open. There's not really much to do, and I have my family at home in Chicago, so I'm super excited and waiting to fight again, and then just be able to go home and relax.
Even in that one statement, there's so many questions I can get from there.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
talk to me with sparring Barbosa. Obviously, the big weight class differences. How was your sort of sparring with that workout? Just sort of
It's
training
funny
together.
because I'm always like, man, ATT is gonna kick me out one of these days just for the fun of it. Like, because I always mess with people and I'm a little bit of the outcast. I kind of stick to myself sometimes. So I'm like, man, they're gonna. I don't know if they like me. I don't know if they like me. And then one day we get this group text like, hey, this is the group. This is who you're sparring with. And I don't know. It's like Shorty and Barboza. I was like, Shorty and Barboza. Damn, I guess they really don't like me. Damn, I'm smart with Barboza. Like he's technically, in all technicality, because he has not made the weight yet. He's a lightweight. He's 155. And if you look up Barboza, just type it on YouTube or Google, the highlights they go for days.
Mm.
And his big highlight reels are either knees or explosive kicks, whether the leg kicks, body kicks, or head kicks. So it's like, oh man, I honestly, before I found out who was fighting, I think it's Dan Ige. I was nervous. There's not many people, and I've sparred with some high level people. There's not many people I've actually gone in there kind of like tingling, like nervous before a roller coaster ride, or shaking before a roller coaster ride, or jumping out of a plane. Like it was a very different feeling, but I take it as a huge, huge excitement because I do enjoy the challenge. And if I'm not like that before sparring, I'm not going to try my best. I'm not going to be able to be 100% because if I mess up Barboza, I'm gonna get kicked in the face. If I stand right in front of him, I'm gonna get stuck in a clinch and knee all day. So I have to be as smart as possible. So to be able to go with him, especially because he's bigger, stronger, and even at times faster, I have to be as smart and elusive as possible. And it's honestly making me a lot better. I'm a little beat up today, I can tell you that for sure. But man, it's a good time. But yeah, the size advantage does come into play, but when it comes to style wise, I think Barboza is probably one of the nicest guys when it comes to sparring. He's super technical and he does hit you where, to the point you're like, okay, oh, that kind of hurt. But one, there is a size advantage, so that's kind of natural when he is, holding back. And then two is it's not that he's trying to hurt you, it's just he's landing that clean of shot sometimes. It's like, okay, wow, I'm leaving that open. Oh wow, I'm susceptible to this. So he is teaching me a lot and it's a lot of fun, man. And I just love the challenge going against a bigger, stronger, and sometimes faster guy. And especially if it's Barboza, a name like that. I mean, that's just it adds to my resume of guys I've been able to honorably spar with.
I mean, from what you said at the start about not knowing if they like you or not, that kind of thing, but for them to give you that kind of respect, to give you someone of that caliber to spar with, like, I mean, that must have been a little bit of a okay, cool. They trust me. They want me here. They want me to be part of the team and help build these guys up as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I always mess with that, that statement. But the thing is, I looked at it as like, okay, either they like me and they respect me to that point where, okay, Shorty's not going to go crazy. Yeah, he's smaller, but he's not going to, crack them, and he's, the look that we need for Barboza. He's going to be respectable enough to help a high level guy like that, one of our bests. Or, man, Shorty's really pissing me off, Barboza. You need to take care of this guy. So because there's such a big, it's technically three weight classes. Even though honestly we're the same weight. Like yesterday, we took a picture and posted it, and we are the same weight. I weigh pretty much about 160 right now, and that's pretty much give or take where he's around 160. And I'm like, Oh man, I'm looking at the picture like, yeah, no, I definitely need to go on a diet because you can tell he's like the bigger guy from like 170, 180 dropping down, and so he's skinny, he's super ripped, and the crazy thing is he's been ready to fight 45 for a few months now, without even a fight scheduled. So he's been cutting down naturally. So he's naturally at 160, no problem. He feels good. But for me, 160 is not natural. I'm just kind of enjoying myself and having fun while I still can before a fight gets scheduled and I have to get back to a weight cut. So when we took the picture, I was like, "Ooh, I'm round. Okay, all right. I
Thick.
gotta get back in shape, man."
But again, there's a few other points to all this kind of stuff, like a little cue for people who don't fight and stuff is to sort of see if anyone's got their shirt on in a picture. There's a good chance, they're they're enjoying
Oh yeah.
themselves a bit too much, a
Which
bit behind the scenes.
it's Dude, it's funny because I was like, "Hey, Barbosa, do you mind if I can take a picture? Like your fight finally got announced. I can, officially announce it on my thing that I'm helping you spar, and just it, helps my social media as well." And it's just awesome taking a picture with him. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." And then immediately he takes off his shirt, and I'm like, "Oh, damn it! You had to, come on, man, you had to take off your shirt." All right. And then the coaches look at me and they're like, "You're gonna take off your?" I was like, "Nope, nope, not even doing it. Nope, I'm just gonna, yep, nope."
Now, this is something you probably discussed quite a few times, is talking about weight cuts and ballooning in short notice cuts. So, you know what's coming next, don't you?
Oh, always.
So, talk us through the most intense, most unreasonable cut of, I say, of your life and career. Would you say? I think that's one of the same, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, I've had some really, really bad cuts. It's crazy. So my last fight, I was ready to make weight, and given I had, or technically I was supposed to fight. I was supposed to fight November, sometime in November last year, and I'm already at Worlds or in Bahrain for Worlds, and my fight against Marcelo Dur, and I was pretty much on schedule to make weight. And dude, I had so much anxiety and paranoia because of everything that happened. For people who don't know, my father passed away last year. I was going through a lot of depression and just trying to stay as calm as possible. I That's when I found out, and you learn so much about yourself, especially during weight cuts. I found out that anxiety and just stress and all this stuff can hold so much weight back. It's crazy how your emotions can literally affect your body to the fullest. It's like when you wake up moody, it ruins the rest of your day. Like you just don't want to get up. It's the same thing when it comes to a weight cut. You could be doing the same exact work, just as intense, but for some reason, because of your emotions, you're only going to lose a certain amount of weight. So I can tell you one, that was horrible. And even if I did make weight, which I could have, oh man, mentally I would have just gotten beaten up, kind of like my last UFC fight. Like I just mentally wasn't there. I was like, let's just get this over and done with, and I got beat up. So your emotions play a huge part in your weight cut. But my hardest weight cut for fact right now was my UFC debut against Jared Brooks. I kept on getting last minute calls by the UFC, like 10 days or less. I'm like, man, why can't they give me a full call? Like I'm not going to take these fights. I have a resume and I deserve to be respected because of it. But because of a dying flyweight division, my team was like, if you can make the weight, take it. So I called my nutritionist, kind of laughing, like, dude, they want me to cut 26 pounds, and that's me checking right now. This is, me just kind of saying, I haven't really eaten, but I can't eat right now. I kind of skipped dinner. And so I'm 26 pounds over in 9 days. And my nutritionist is like, dude, you're in shape. You've been training. You're just fat. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, you're just fat. You could do it, but you have to stay as mentally prepared as possible because it's going to suck. And in 9 days, I lost 26 pounds and I won my UFC debut.
There's, I can't even begin to start with any of it. I
Dude,
mean,
it was horrible. It was horrible.
first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. I didn't have no idea about that. And
Thank you. Thank
also,
you.
when you have that kind of cut, when something that traumatic happens, then how are you still motivated? Sorry, how are you still mentally focused with everything? Because obviously, the emotions and your natural, everything going on.
Well, for me, it's not saying that I'm just like the jock or anything, but I didn't I don't know much more than just train and fight. So for me, I started fighting because of my father. He made me fight. Like that was his dream, not mine. So it was one of those things that I became a professional athlete because of him. And so I was already training for my fight, and then he passed a little bit past halfway during my camp, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're gonna back out of the fight?" I'm like, no, what else do I know how to do? I'm gonna fight. I've already been down here for months. I'm gonna fight. And that was the first ever like big death that was close to me. Like I've had friends pass away and other family members, but nothing like my best friend, like my father. So when he passed away, yeah, I went home to bury him and do all the things I needed to do. And then they're like, "Oh, you're gonna stay here?" I was like, "No, I'm gonna go back to ATT. I'm gonna keep on training." And I kept training like it was normal, but honestly, I didn't know how to handle the emotions. I didn't know that you were supposed to have a grieving moment. I didn't know you were supposed to have, time to yourself and figure out what's next mentally. Because physically, yeah, you can get up and do the work every single day, but every single night I was breaking down randomly, kind of noticing how much my father was really part of my life, which I always knew, but it was really starting to come into the light. Like, oh man, after practice, I would call my father. After sparring, I'd show him the film because he loved to watch it. And so many things with that. So it slowly started to break me down and create a toll. And I'm a depressive eater, so I'm an emotional eater. So I would binge eat by accident Saturday and Sunday, and then have to make up for it again Monday through Friday, and then mess up again. So it kept on going back and forth. And by the time I left much heavier than I should have, but it was still in a weight that I could do. Again, I've lost 26 pounds in 9 days. I was nowhere near that, so I was like, yeah, I can do this, no problem. And when we got to Bahrain, it's at Worlds, so I was a two-time world champ, and so there's hundreds to thousands of people there who know me, and these are all people who, in a sense, trying to achieve what I've been able to achieve twice. And they're coming up to me, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. My condolences, my condolences." And just imagine that 100 plus times a day. It's like, "Hey, man, I really do appreciate everyone's respect and condolences, but I'm kind of trying to focus on the fight. So everyone's kind of bringing the emotions up back to back to back to back. And then I have close friends at Worlds who are just like, I feel very comfortable with kind of opening up to. And then I don't know where I'm crying the most I've ever cried in hell in my life. So almost 3 times a day, I'm really bawling out to people, in a sense, repeating the same story over and over and over again. And all that balled up emotions, kind of what I put in the jar, just kind of let loose that week. There was 4 days in a row to where I was losing weight, no problem. I was losing like 4 or 5 pounds, killing it, like literally just going down, no problem with ease, and I was feeling good. And then 4 days straight, my weight never changed, and I was like, what's up? And my nutritionist is like, dude, I'm pretty sure your emotions are kind of holding you back. Like I was the diet was the same, the water intake was the same, everything was the same. Nothing changed besides my emotions because I was now letting everything out, and my body just did not want to cooperate with me. And I had that fight against Alex Perez in the UFC, which was pretty much the same thing. I was so emotional and like emotionally drained, mentally drained for that fight that by the time I got to fight, I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to go home, and I ended up having the worst performance of my life because of it. And I suffered my first ever, finished loss, a TKO. I took 107 shots for no reason in 3 minutes and 30 seconds when I could have just, went home. And it was kind of reminiscent of that. I was like, oh man, I could easily make the weight. Let me rephrase that. I could make the weight, but it's gonna kill my body, and I'm not prepared for this whatsoever. If I go in there, I'm not gonna want to fight, and I'm not trying to lose again at my worst. I'd rather win. I'd rather lose at my best, saying, "Hey, I gave it my all. There's nothing I could do." Compared to even still today, thinking about the Alex Perez fights, the woulda, shoulda, coulda. What happens if I would have tried my best? What happens if I even would have just tried, a little bit? So I made the smart and healthy decision to go home. It sucks financially, but it's been a full year since my last fight. But I can tell you that right after I went home for 2 months, that's all I focused on was spending time with my family, working on myself mentally, and just doing things that I've been wanting to do for years. And it's something that I believe has helped a lot. Now I'm back down here, but I'm itching to fight.
Again, there's just so many things to sort of dissect from that. I mean, there's so much I mean, grief itself is such a strange thing, and it's so personal to each person for the whole experiences and then dealing with it. And then, adversely, being in like quite a public sort of spotlight in the MMA world and everything else, people with genuine concern and care, but it's bringing it back up. It's getting you talking about it. It's just a bit like, yeah, I get you care, but can you leave? Can you let me forget about it for a minute, please? It's just like on repeat and stuff, and then your career and just all the stress and everything else. And it's good that you took that time for yourself to really just reset and recharge, because people don't take it anywhere near as seriously as they should do with like mental health and sort of mental side of everything. Because say if your weight cut's bad, you change your diet up, you fix that up. If your head's not right, what would you do? You don't just ignore it. You have to sort it out. You have to find out what's really getting with you. And again, I could only imagine, I wouldn't want to say anything out of turn saying that if your dad was that much of an influence in all of your training and all your sort of habits you built up, if he isn't at that point for you then to contact at these stages after training, as you were saying, all this kind of stuff, you sort of lose that routine, you lose your rhythm, you lose that structure almost. I couldn't even imagine to begin how much that would have affected you just throughout all of this.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, it still affects me today. It's yeah, a little over 6 months now since he's passed away, and it's people think it gets lighter. Technically, emotionally, you get used to people being gone, and the routine changes a little bit. But mentally, it's still the same. The pain is always there. It's just different because you're a little more used to that person not being around as much. But it's hard. I mean, I trained with Barbosa yesterday. I filmed it, and it's like I have my usual list of people that I send it to that I want notes and intake from, and he was one of those people. My father always wanted to be a fighter, so because he never got the opportunity, he pretty much instilled in me to be the fighter. And every time I fought, that man would cry before the fight because he was just so excited and so happy, before it happened. So for me to be sparring with some of the best like Barboza, I mean, yesterday I was like, man, I want to send this to my father. I want to talk about it. Oh, damn, yeah, I forgot. So it's one of those things that it does get difficult. I like for me, I'm not a huge fan of Daniel Cormier, but when he talked on the UFC about his father passing, it's like, dude, I feel you. Because my father was such an influence in my life, and that's something you have to honor and respect, that when somebody passes away that's so close to you, it does affect you extremely mentally, and eventually takes a toll on you physically because of how you take it out. And for me, I wasn't letting it out whatsoever. It was pretty much eating up at me inside, and it affected my fight. It affected my weight cut. It affected just me mentally to where I wanted to go home. And I'm not saying I'm suicidal or whatsoever, but it's one of those things that if a car was about to hit me, I probably wouldn't have moved. That's just one of those things. So it's crazy how your emotions can pretty much take 100% control of your body.
Definitely, and what you're saying there is, it's just so true, that level of sort of humanity, really, that regardless of your opinion on someone, when something like that happens, you just drop that completely gets put to one side, and you're like, okay, I can only, you really put yourself in their shoes, you can really emulate it. And something you said a minute ago really sort of resonated, because when my brother passed away a couple of years ago, it was one of those things that it's not the direct things necessarily that get you over time, it's the indirect things. So it's not necessarily like the birthday that upsets you and stuff, it's more like, oh, by association, this is what normally happens, and then part of that same pathway, oh, and it catches you off guard almost. And yeah, I can only emulate. I mean, everything's different for every person, and it's just so tricky to deal with it, and there's no necessarily right or wrong way. But that's probably one of the hardest parts about it. It's not like, the usual, oh, you've got an injury, you just ice and compress it and you're good to go. No, it's very specific to each person.
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, and like you're saying, there's always random triggers to where I'm not thinking of that person today, or not trying to really look at the emotions. But I don't know, or I play music every single day on my phone when I start my day, and Tupac was one of my father's favorite artists, and my father was a gang member. He was a thug, so we listened to a lot of Tupac. Again, Shorty Want to Be a Thug is one of the reasons why my nickname is Shorty. So he like listening to music, I don't know, where Life Goes On by Tupac comes on, and I'm listening to it. I was like, oh, cool, it's a good song. Then you really start to pay attention to the lyrics, and you're like, oh man, this is okay. Wow, all right, I'm gonna cry today. And then later on the day, you feel a little better, but you're just like, God, I had that moment. Wow. Okay, that was 20 minutes of this. You're just playing the song on a repeat. It's like, all right, cool. Now I'm 20 minutes late to whatever I got to do. So it's very different. I decided to read books, and I'm not even a reader. So I always tell people, if I'm trying to read to make myself feel better, then there's a problem. So I was reading books. I was taking little vacations. I was taking my family everywhere, and trying to be as nostalgic as possible. And then with this fighting game, I lose a social life. I lose family time. I lose time in general. So I was just trying to make up for a lot of lost time and enjoy myself while I still can. It's crazy. Time flies by extremely fast. I'm sorry to hear about your brother. It's I have one brother as well, and if he would pass, it'd be devastating. He's technically died twice. He's like Bruce Willis from Die Hard. He just won't die.
He just won't go anywhere.
Yeah, he's technically died twice, and somehow have come back and prevailed through all. Knock on wood. And it's just one of those things that there's a turn of emotions. when I went home after my father's death and decided to, not take this fight and relax and be as nostalgic as possible and kind of enjoy my life while I still have it. I visited one of my friends. Actually, it's his birthday, I believe today, and his name was Izzy, and we got to hang out. And I haven't seen him since high school, which is 10 years ago. And then, last month he died.
Oh
He was
God.
starting to get into psychedelics, and accidentally overdosed. And he was just one of those super, super friendly, nice, genuine kids. And just, it was one of those unfortunate times that it was just a little bit too much. And, it was too much of a trip and his body couldn't handle it. He passed away. And it's just one of those things that you just never know what's going to happen, so I'm trying to enjoy the times while I have it, while I, have the chance to. And if I don't, then I have to make sure I'm using this time working as full as possible to make it worth it.
I guess it gets so tricky when it comes to all these different emotions and how you then process them at each time, especially with everything going on as well. Like you were saying, you were doing quite a lot of reading. What kind of stuff were you reading?
Honestly, different mental books. Like one of the biggest books. I'm horrible with the titles, but it's pretty much the multiple ways and the different steps of grieving. How to in a sense properly mourn a loss. And again, there's no proper way to do it, but the psychiatrist pretty much explains all of her clients, given a different name, but uses examples from her clients and all the different ways that they've handled their emotions, what type of emotions they were dealing with, and what they did next to kind of in a sense prevail. And there were stories where people quote unquote got over it in a year. Then you have people who literally still cry about it 20 years later. You technically never get over it. It's always going to be there because it was such a big part of your life. But it's one of those things that some people handle it better than others. Some people can hide it better than others, and some people can just naturally keep on going without letting it affect you to a certain extent. So it's trying to, one of the biggest things I learned was, for me, I'm a social butterfly. If especially during this quarantine, if I'm in my room by myself, I don't want to do anything all day. I don't want to talk to anybody all day. I don't want to deal with anything, because that's when kind of you're talking to your demons, your thoughts come in your head, and I don't know, you're thinking stuff that you shouldn't ever be thinking. And then you go outside for 5 minutes, you're like, oh, I feel better. Damn, I should have been outside this whole time. So for me, it's trying to be a social butterfly, try to talk to people, trying to be outside, see the sun, and try to be as positive as possible, because that's one of the things we have to do. If not, we're going to live a long, long, morning and boring life.
I mean, again, there's just so much to sort of talk about with this. I mean, with like the whole grieving thing, one thing I really found with it is sort of changing certain perspective on it. So like, it's never getting over the loss of someone, and it's learning to live on and accept it than it is to get over it. If I find the term like getting over it as such is always seen as like, oh, it's like a breakup. Oh, you're not over her yet. Oh no, you still care about her. No, it's not that at all. It's you'll always care about them. They'll always be your family member. They'll always be part of your life. But you're living on. So instead of getting over it, where it seems like we're closing the door, it's like, okay, this is the next chapter almost. And one thing I've really really appreciated from speaking to different people is there's no right or wrong way to deal with it. Because some people think, oh, why am I not crying? Why am I feeling okay? Why am I this, that, and the other? But there isn't any distinct right way. It's all, people deal with it in different ways. And as long as you can be comfortable knowing this is your way of dealing with it, then I think it's going to help a lot of people deal with it. I mean, again, it's case by case. You can't give it a one lump sum thing, but it's good to, get an oversight as a whole.
Yeah, it's very different, very specific for a lot of people. And I mean, people were telling me, hey, if you have to cry, go ahead, cry. And I was raised not to cry. Again, my father was a thug, so it was one of those things that you got to be Mr. Tough Guy. You can't talk about your emotions, but I'm the person that I guess needs to talk about their emotions and needs to let it out. So there's times where that song "Life Goes On," where out of nowhere I was like, okay, let me sit down, let me listen to it, let me mourn it, and then let me kind of pick myself back up and continue on my day. If not, if I don't let it out, it bites at me all day. So it's one of those things that I need to express myself to a certain extent to feel better, and then be able to be as productive as possible.
Definitely. It's good that you're able to be honest with yourself and that kind of self-awareness of everything else, because often what you'll find with people who don't necessarily accept the situation they're in is it'll affect them anyway, but they won't accept it's that. They'll just start being really, angry with people or being a bit, short-tempered and that kind of stuff. So it's good that you're able to understand what's going on with yourself, in the sense of you're aware of, you're feeling this sort of way, so you're going to do something about it. You're not going to let it consume you. You're not going to ignore it. You're going to deal with it as best you can.
I'm trying to, and it's, again, like, you say with your brother, and I'm pretty sure you think of random instances where it's like, oh man, for my father at least, you grew up trying to resemble your father and be just like him. I notice a lot of things, especially talking to my brother, where he's like, oh, that reminds me of dad. Damn, you sound like dad. Damn, you look like dad, or this, that,
Oh,
dad. And I'm just like, yeah, damn. I don't know how much, he influenced me. Growing up, I wasn't a big fan of my father. So by the time I became a teenager and started to fight, him and I got along a lot more, and we started to, settle a lot of our differences, and end up being pretty much best friends. So growing up, trying in a sense not to be like him, in a sense, made me more like him. So by the time I'm an adult and I fight and do all certain things, my brother looks at me or my mom talks to me, and she's like, "Oh man, that reminds me of your dad. You do this just like him." And I'm like, "Huh, that's actually kind of funny, because you try so hard not to be like somebody, and out of nowhere you're pretty much exactly like them to a T sometimes." So there's instances where I look at my brother and say the same, or him and I act just like each other. So it's just one of those things that it's crazy how much one person, whether they're your father, they're your brother, a friend, a loved one, that they can influence your life so much sometimes, even with possibly doing so little.
again, there's just so much to sort of talk about with this kind of stuff. But if we go into you starting fighting and stuff, so you're saying your dad really wanted you to like fight and all this kind of stuff. What was his background regards of like fighting in martial arts?
Well, my dad was a goon in a gang. I don't know if you ever seen the first Rocky. So
Yeah.
the very first Rocky, for people who don't know, Rocky was an enforcer, meaning he would go collect the money, and if there was a problem, he'd beat you up. My dad wasn't a big guy, but he was, he was on steroids back in the day, so he was always ready to. He always wanted to bang. He was, let me bang, bro. So he was that guy that was always
Let me
angry,
bang.
always ready, and just wanted to scrap. So I mean, my dad had stories of him fighting and winning, him fighting and losing, some dumb fights where it's like, dude, that wasn't smart at all. But he'd do it anyways because he was just so brave and he enjoyed the challenge. I mean, my father had stories of there was 15 people around and there was one person in the middle and he needed to, pretty much be the enforcer and collect the money from that guy. So he would just run straight to the middle and try to attack the guy and then get jumped by all 15. It's like, that's not the brightest thing in the world, but it also resembles why I fight the way I do. So it's crazy how, my father wanted to be a fighter. He was a gang member. He didn't have the proper upbringing, and just never had the opportunity to be bright and under the spotlight. And he, in a sense, in the long run, gave me the opportunity to do that, and I took full advantage of it. And I'm at where I'm at today. I mean, my father, I'm still not a fan of fighting. Like I really do hate the violence, but there's two things I wanted to do in my life. One was accomplish the goals that my parents wanted to accomplish, which was pretty much be a professional athlete, for my father being a fighter. And then two is I always wanted to be a hero. I looked at Power Rangers, Dragon Ball Z, Ninja Turtles, all these shows of people being the hero and fighting for good. So I naturally fought for good. And I noticed every time I fought, more and more people from my neighborhood got inspired. And I started to make it out. And it's like, if this Shorty can do it, so can you, which is why another reason why I use the moniker Shorty. So it's crazy how I've been able to accomplish his goals and my goals at the same time. But my dad used to make us watch boxing fights, with like the HBO After Dark and the ESPN free boxing fights or the random local boxing fights on whatever network in the city you're at. And we would just randomly sit down and watch that. And my middle name's Angel, so he's like, Angel, come on, sit down and watch this. What is he doing? What is he doing with his front leg? What is he doing with his front hand or this? And we would just break down fights. And little I know, years later, I'm helping my teammates get ready for their fights by breaking down people's film. So when I watch film, I think of my father. I'm like, oh, damn, if it wasn't for you, in a sense, forcing me to watch all this film of random people fighting, even Mike Tyson 100 times, it's crazy how you can still learn someone's nuances over and over and over again and notice something new. So it's a crazy skill that I've been able to acquire because of it. But that was pretty much what my father wanted me to do.
Going back to the first thing you said, anyone listening who hasn't seen the first Rocky, why are you listening to this podcast? Go watch Rocky. That's the first point I want to make. Second point with this is, okay, I'm going to go on a few little tangents and we'll get to the actual main question. First of all, Dragon Ball Z, what's your favourite saga?
Oh man, honestly, I'll probably go with the Cell Saga.
Oh,
Uh,
my guy. He
I,
knows.
I- I'll more than likely go with the Cell Saga, and then Frieza, then the Saiyan, and then Boo Saga last because Boo was all over the place. But it's even though Boo was cool, I just think it was crazy all over the place. I think the only highlight from that saga was Majin Vegeta. But and maybe what was it Vegito in that one? I think it was Vegito. But the crazy thing is for me, I I idolize Goku. So when I say I get all tingly and stuff before I spar with Barbosa, it's because I'm nervous. I'm legit scared of the guy. And he can knock me out because him being bigger as well. He can knock me out at any moment if he really tried. So when I go with him, I know I have to be as smart as possible. It's the same thing when Goku fought Cell. He's like, I'm certain I'm gonna lose. Like at this point right now, Cell is stronger than me, but I'm still gonna give it my all. And that's what I do is I enjoy the challenge and try my best of different things knowing that I probably still might lose, but if I do the right things, I still have a small chance, a small opening of winning. And I have a Napoleon complex, so I love taking out big guys. That's just how when I was an amateur, I fought exhibition fights at 170. I fought exhibition fights at 155. So even though I've always been a flyweight, I've always bumped up. That's just what my coach taught me as well. But I guess the guy who I resemble the most, not idolize, but resemble the most is considered Team Gohan. I was always a gentle kid that never wanted to fight, but if you push the right buttons, something crazy is going to come out, and I'm going to make everyone pay. Hopefully I'm not as stubborn and finish the guy off a little earlier than than what he did. But it's one of those things that I am a gentle person at heart. I always try to help and I always try to do the right thing. But if I have to, if you push me to I guess to my breaking point, then something else is going to come out to play.
To go on a few things you were saying, so about one is that you liked breaking down the fight and understanding certain elements from watching the sort of tape back and stuff, and you also didn't like the fighting side of it. Do you see MMA as sport, or do you see it as a fight? So when you go into it, are you thinking it's a fight, or are you thinking it's a sport and it's a competition as such?
Well, it's crazy because then you have to look at it as what do you see MMA as in general? Like, why do you do the sport? For me, as an amateur, I did the sport because it was fun. I had hundreds of fights in different, combative sports. In MMA alone, I had 26. I was 25-1 with 25 straight wins and 2 world championships. Now, with those fights, I've had 4 fights in 1 month. I've had fights against a 155 pounder. I've had fights at flyweight. I've had fights at different, weight classes. I did it because it was fun. But now, as an adult, and being more mature, and now I have to in a sense fight for my life, money, possible family in the future help. My father passed. The money that paid for the funeral was my money. So money has given me the chance to do a lot of things. Fighting has given me the chance to make money, to make opportunity for my family, be able to take and do things that my family never got to do when they were younger or my age. It's one of those things that now it's become a job than more as a fight. If it's fun, then I think it's a sport. But right now, it's for me, it's a fight. That's why you see guys when they finally have kids. Deontay Wilder, for example, in boxing, he's like, I don't fight for me. If I fought for me, this would be fun. No, I fight for my daughter because I need to pay the bills for her. So it's a crazy thing. You look at one of my good friends, Eric Shelton. I've known him for about 3 years now, and I think he has 5 or 6 kids, and that's all he fights for. He goes, I need to fight. I need to fight. I need to fight. I'm like, why? You just fought. He goes, I need to make money. Dude, I don't got one kid. I don't got two. I got five or, I think he has 5 or 6. So it's the crazy thing of he needs to fight to keep his family afloat. And if he doesn't fight, then there it goes. So it's not as fun as it used to be. It's now 100% a job. So it's trying to, in a sense, find that genuine purity of why you originally started the sport in the first place. Because no one started the sport unless you're a huge fan of Conor McGregor. No one started the sport and go, "Hey, I'm gonna be a millionaire doing this" after the first practice. They
Yeah.
go, "I want to. This is fun. This is challenging. I like this. This is pushing me. Oh, cool. I get a chance for an amateur fight, and then it builds from there." But it's extremely rare that somebody even before practice or even after the first one they go, "I'm gonna do this to be a millionaire." And that's also extremely rare, especially in MMA.
There was a thing on it's interesting you say that about the sort of the seriousness now and taking away the fun almost and making it more like a job. Because there was I think one of the first things I saw was like an inside documentary on you, like a black and white one, and you just had like so much fun with everything and all of it. And I just think I'd hate to see that kind of go with the stress of it all. I can't help but feel if you can keep that purity, keep you as such, that kind of, messing around
The
with
good old
Curtis blades and all that kind of stuff, just being like, having fun and then putting the work in when you need to, but enjoying yourself.
it's crazy how, and that's actually the year I met Eric Shelton as well. It was in Colorado at Muscle Farm. That Fighters Project, which I'm hoping to do another one soon. I was actually talking to a guy not too long ago about it. A phenomenal guy. But Alejandro Crossland, his work. He works on Onyx and Justin Gage. The guys in Colorado, Rose Namajunas, Curtis Blade, Chip and Mariscal, myself, and so many more. Um, it's it's crazy because you have to look at it this way. Definitely when I'm on camera, when I'm my true self, I have a lot of fun. I do like being under the spotlight. I get to show my personality. I love being I wouldn't say per se, the clown, funny one, but I'm the one that wants to put the light into the room, the Robin Williams. I don't want anyone to feel, some type of way. I want you to smile and be happy and enjoy what time we have here. So when it comes to this sport, I'm a person that needs to make people smile. So when we go to practice, I know if I'm smiling, people are going to smile in the room as well because I'm going to make them smile. Somehow I'm going to get it done. But if I come in frowning, for the guy who's always smiling all the time, that comes in with a straight face, that's either, oh man, he's serious or something seriously wrong. So for me, I need to be as energetic as possible. But I can tell you, especially, I think in 2018 was kind of when like my depression started to hit, with the UFC or trying to get into the UFC, and then the UFC bringing me in, and then, cutting me, and then this whole, where am I going to go next, fighting for Brave and only having one fight in almost a year because of just my stuff behind the scenes. It's crazy how, your life can change in a day, in a month, in a few weeks, in a month, in a year, or even, longer than that. And it's crazy how your mindset can change. I can tell you I'm a lot more serious than I ever thought I would be. And that's something that I've been trying to do, especially before this quarantine started, was even during this quarantine, is trying to let my true self out and play. It's we all have a child inside. But a lot of people are embarrassed to let it out. For me, I try my best to let it out, to play as much as possible. But my adult demon side sometimes comes out. And it's like, no, you get back in your cage. Let me handle this. And it's like, oh man, I don't want to be super serious all the time. So it does get difficult at times, especially when you are in a sport where you get punched in the face every single day. You're hurt, you're banged up, you're beat up. There's very little money in the sport when we put so much on the line for it, especially our brain, our time, our lives. It does get difficult, but trying to stay as positive as possible is the hardest thing. You got to look at it, and that's something I wanted to do in my own little podcast, was talk about this, where it involves money, it involves time, it involves your social life, it involves your youth, your time and life in general, and moments with your family. You look at Paul Felder after he lost his last fight against Dan Hooker. He was like, dude, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Not because of the beatings. I can take the beatings every day, but I'm missing my daughter. I'm missing time away from home, from my family. I'm missing their first steps, their first words. I don't believe I have any kids, but it's one of those things that, I don't want to miss the opportunity either. I've had relationships fail on me because I'm always traveling. I'm always busy. I have no time for everybody else because I do put MMA first, because I've been doing this since I was 4 years old. We look at my father passing last year. I got down here in March. I thought I was going to fight in August. So I pretty much had a few months to train and get ready. Then the fight gets postponed until November for whatever reason. And I'm like, okay, let me go home for 2 weeks, spend 2 weeks with my family. They came back down for pretty much 2.5 months. Then my father passes. And then I end up not taking the fight in general. It's like, whoa. So you're telling me I could have been home for 6 more months to spend that time with my father and obviously the rest of my family, but that's time I'll never get back. So it's one of those things that's like, you have to utilize your time as much as possible. And this sport becomes a job eventually. Like, sports are meant for fun, but once you're a professional, as serious as possible in this endeavor, it gets extremely, extremely hard, especially because you never know when, tomorrow is going to end. I could walk outside and I don't know, or sprain my ankle or trip and break something. And the doctor's like, dude, you can never fight again. And it's like, oh, well, that was in a sense kind of a waste of time, to a certain extent. So it's like, this sport is hard. So either you're all in or you're not.
Well, that's it. Because being like, as you were saying, like, it's almost like a double-edged sword kind of thing. You have to put yourself first to do well in this sport, and once you've done well in that sport, what's left afterwards? And in the process of putting yourself first, what have you missed out on? And then that saying like time you missed out, you won't be able to get back. And you'll get a lot of people who've retired or live on their sort of laurels of, oh, I used to do this, I used to do that, and then what? Where's their life gone? And on top of all this stuff, again, oh, I'd even begin to even dissect half of that stuff. It's a proper, as long as I can't even. Let me try and get my words. I'm trying to get my words out, man. There's so much to sort of talk about this stuff. I'll tell you what I wanted to get into was first of all, has the skateboard gone with you to top American Top Team? That's the one thing I want to know. The penny board.
You know, what's crazy is my car is down here and it's usually in my trunk. So that's something I've been meaning to clean up my trunk because my trunk is always full. So I'm hoping it's in here. I actually don't believe it is. My brother likes to, he used to like taking my skateboard out and just randomly skating on it because for some reason the one I bought him broke, even though it's the same exact one. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, I hope, because I see people cruising around, like I see people riding their bikes here, rollerblading, doing all these things, and I'm the one like running and all that stuff. I'm like, man, I'm tired of running. I just want to cruise and enjoy myself. And I'm staying with like I'm at American Top Team. My manager lives right down the block, so he lives in Florida's made of a bunch of communities, like gated communities, which is a culture shock to me. But they're not just random blocks where you can just kind of run around. They're all communities. If you don't have a pass or if you don't live in the community, you can't come in. So I'm in one of his. Yeah, it's very different. So I'm in one of his communities, and it's about like 3 miles circle wise. So you see people in the community running every day, jogging, working out outside, riding their bikes, skating, and I'm just like, damn, I missed this. You know, like I'm here right now with his kids, and he has a 9 and 11-year-old. Me, I've always kind of given my time to kids because I miss my youth. I miss my childhood. That was easily the best times of my life because it was like the kids at the Sandlot. You know, we always had a bunch of fun. Somehow we always met up at the park, even though no one had phones back in the day. We all just had bikes, and if you saw a pile of bikes there, you're just like, oh, cool, we're all playing today. So it's one of those things that like they're 9 and 11. They're like, let's go on the trampoline, let's go in the pool. And when I was a kid, that's all I wanted to do. But now as an adult, I'm like, man, I'm getting too old for this, and I'm only 27, you know? So it's one of those things where, like, sometimes I feel exhausted. I feel tired. But then when I start playing again, it's like, man, this is awesome. Yeah, I miss my youth. It's crazy how once you're an adult, you become so serious in life in general that you can't make time to do what you used to do every single day. You know, as a kid that you extremely enjoy, but now as an adult, you don't like it as much. It's kind of like eating food. It's like, man, when I was a kid, I hated onions, but now I love onions, you know? So it's or, you know, the opposite, vice versa. So it's a crazy thing how that works. So it's trying to remind yourself, you know, where you came from and what made you happy in this upbringing.
I think that's where your sort of genuine, you know, when I said about you like goofing around and having a lot of fun and stuff. I think that's how you really feel the sort of genuine side of that. Because some people you can tell when they play up a bit to try and come across, hey, look at me, I'm fun, I'm not boring, I promise. Whereas yours is a lot more like genuine, a lot more. We can tell it comes from a more natural place. That kind of stuff.
I try, and that's the thing is you know it's kind of crazy because my family, depending on who we're talking about, my family, not everybody, but you know, I didn't have the best upbringing, so I've had family to steal from us. I've had family to steal from me. I've had, you know, people who seem genuine and try to take full advantage of you. Like for me, my professional career, even especially with all my accolades, I didn't hire a manager until I made it to the UFC. You know, so it's crazy that I was already 7 fights in and I didn't have a manager. I was managing my own career and I was doing well at it, given with some assistance here and there. But the reason why I didn't want to hire a manager because I was just so nervous with people. I'm very shady where it's like, oh, you don't like, I remember, you know, leaving certain gyms because, you know, I'd be at the beginning of my career having a great time and then asking for help and no one wanted to help me. But then I win a belt or two and they're like, oh, dude, come here. I'm more than happy to help you. And it's like, oh, now you want to help me, you know? So it's, for me, I've never been much of a liar unless I truly had to save someone's feelings. But it's one of those things that like, I'm not, you know, I've always been as honest as I possibly can be. And if people, which has also got me into a lot of trouble because, you know, for some reason people like to ask questions they don't want to get an answer of, and then now I'm the bad guy for giving them the answer that they expected to hear. And it's like, oh, dude, why are you mad at me? Come on, you know. So it's, for me, it's trying to be as honest and as genuine as possible, and really also looking back at what made me happy. And this is something, you know, playing, having fun, and enjoying myself to the fullest. If I seem like a little kid to you, then great. That's actually a compliment to me because, you know, being a little kid is always still today what I want to be. Hell, I could be 80 years old, which, hey, maybe I'll make it, there one day. But even at 80 years old, I'm still gonna have the kid inside me wanting to play. So I'm just gonna have some some disabilities holding me back. But it's just one of those things that I'm pretty sure you can think of stuff right now when you're a kid. You're like, man, I'd love to do this, or man, I used to do this all the time. You see, hell, when's the last time you've been on a bike and actually ridden it to go to someone's house instead of being in a car or in a car? I ended up buying a bike just for the fun of it. And I was like, man, I used to ride this with no handlebars. Why just, so hard, or no hands, on the handlebars? Why is it so hard to do now? And you start getting back to it. Now you're doing tricks again. Now, instead of using my car when I'm home, I ride my bike, So it's just trying to enjoy the little things in life and kind of reminisce on the good old heyday, if you want to say.
Well, definitely. I mean, as long as, because again, it's all part of that same thing of being genuine to who you are. And again, it's an irony. It's funny what you mentioned there about people sort of coming out of the dark when you're starting to do well. Because I've touched on this in a few of my podcasts recently, that a lot of people will sponsor the bigger names and sort of support the bigger people, whereas it's like the amateurs, like the guys at the IMAFs and all this kind of stuff, the people who actually need the support are the ones who get ignored, the ones who need that actual support. So it is interesting hearing, like, even at more like higher levels, you have the same kind of issues.
It's crazy how, and I noticed this too. Like growing up, I had to fight for a lot of things, and people eventually were nice enough to me because they saw just, I guess, my true side and enjoyed that. So they're like, yeah, I'll help you. I'm more than happy to help you. And I've always tried to give just as much, if not double, in return of assistance in whatever way I could. But I've noticed the more successful I've gotten, the more free stuff I get. And it's like, huh, what? So you're telling me the more money I get or the more fame I get, the more free stuff I get? That makes no sense to me compared to when I needed it most, you didn't want to help me. But now I have this fame and popularity, and you're like, dude, yeah, the hell, yeah, you can keep my phone taken. It's like, oh, what? So it's just, it's crazy how now the more successful one gets, the more people want to be with you and be in your entourage and do this and do that. But it's not for you. It's because of your background, because of what you have achieved at this moment. But once that's gone, that's gone. So it's kind of crazy how opposite it really is.
And one thing to want to sort of touch on, which you kind of mentioned earlier briefly about the sort of UFC and everything else, because binging your YouTube, is it Inside Shorty? What is it?
Yeah. Inside Team Shorty. I
Inside Team
appreciate
Shorty.
that. I haven't made a video in probably a good while, but I got to get back to that.
Yeah, because I've been binging that quite a bit. And the thing you were saying about how the UFC kind of, I don't know, it just sort of didn't live up to expectations. I was curious what that's like, because I know you were saying before how it wasn't necessarily what you wanted to do, but, whilst you started doing it and doing well in it, I'd imagine that'd be the natural sort of goal. And then, the peak of the mountain doesn't live up to expectation. Talk us through what that was like.
It's crazy how you look at other sports, NFL, NHL, MLB, any other sports, especially in the States, you see the fame, the popularity, the money, the way they treat their athletes. UFC is very different. UFC, you would think, because they are the pinnacle of the sport, at least for sure in the States and some places worldwide, it's the pinnacle of the sport. So you think it is your NFL, your Premier League, and then you get there and you notice you're just extremely expendable. At least in football, you have a union, you have some type of pay, you have a 401k. If you get cut, you have still money going to you in some sort of way. But for the UFC, they can cut you even before your contract's over. So for me, I had a 4-fight contract. I was cut after my second fight, and I was 1-1. I had one TKO, and then I got TKO. That's pretty fair. That's pretty even. But I ended up getting released because of certain circumstances that the UFC was dealing with the flyweight division. So it's a crazy thing that, especially with the UFC, you start to realize that it's not the best athletes in the world. Oh, there's definitely some of the best athletes. I wouldn't say all of them are the best because there's so many promotions around in the world now, and some promotions pay some athletes a lot better. So it's crazy how they'll go there instead of the UFC. But you have some of the best athletes in the world, but you have so many guys in there, or females, that are just in there because it's a popularity contest. You look at some fighters in there that you literally just watch and you're like, how did they make it this far? Why? Oh, he or she's good looking. Oh, you look at their Instagram, they have 100,000 plus followers. Oh, they sell tickets. That's why. You look at boxing. Boxing's notorious for this, where they have some really good, pretty boy looking kid coming up, and then out of nowhere, he's knocking out all these guys. But then you look at their records, you look at who they fought, and you're just like, oh, that's actually not good at all. Damn, he's technically beating bums, and they're just building him up with some very, very easy fights. So it's a crazy thing how sometimes, I mean, look at the UFC. I think the prime example is CM Punk. Dude, CM Punk made his pro debut, not his UFC debut, but his pro MMA debut. Let me rephrase that. His MMA in general debut. He had no amateur fights in the UFC, and he made $500,000 in his debut. When you have guys like Joseph Benavidez and Sergio Pettis fighting for a contender fight, number 2 and 3 at the time, fighting on a UFC Fight Pass card, not even in the prelims or the main card, in the UFC Fight Pass prelim card. And Joseph Benavidez won, but he didn't get a title shot. If Sergio Pettis would have won because of his popularity, he would have gotten a title shot. So it's crazy how the system works with the UFC, and that's something that I've highly disagreed with. I do believe in boxing where there should be mandatory fights instead of popularity contest fights. Like, cool, I'm happy, George Masvidal has the BMF belt, but that was 100% a WWE style type of thing. Hey, let's make this crazy belt like the WWE does, and the fans are going to love it and watch it. The belt technically doesn't mean a thing. It was just a nice, fun exhibition fight. So it's crazy how the promotion has come from martial arts styles versus martial arts styles to see who's the best in the world, to now to popularity contests, and let's see how much money we can make making some I guess fan entertaining fights instead of, in a sense, the best fighting the best.
The integrity in the sport is certainly questionable at the minute, because like you're saying, like the celebrities, the big names getting these opportunities, and the more respected, more deserving sort of fighters are getting overlooked. And again, as much as there's always an argument with this stuff, because when it comes to being on top and changing the game and trying to stay, at the top of the top, you're going to have to take risks and try new things. But at what cost? What time does it become from, like you were saying, the original martial arts, who's the best at everything, to, okay, wouldn't it be fun if we watched a lion fight, I don't know, a different animal, whatever it becomes at that point. It's like, yeah, I don't care how Batman fights, I don't know, like Spider-Man or something. That's not like something that you put in the UFC. That's something you talk about in the playground, or something or on a Reddit forum or whatever. I don't know. It's an interesting one, because you get like ONE FC that seems to have a lot more clued up, but regarding talent, it's a very mixed bag, because you get obviously like DJ going over there. I remember you saying about the whole transfer with Askren, and that in itself was an interesting situation. Do you reckon there should be more trades in across different promotions?
What's funny is that's the video that actually got me released from the UFC. Out of all the publicity that they didn't want, I guess that was one of them, and I got released because of it. And it's like, oh, wait. So you're telling me this accusation video that I pretty much speculated, and I so happen to be right, I got cut because of it. So it's one of those things that, one, it's but Colby Covington could, again, another teammate of mine, which is he's genuinely a nice guy. Colby Covington going out there and bashing the owner or the president of the UFC, which is Dana White, and then he gets a title fight, making however much money. So it's crazy how some publicity they prefer, even though it's all trash talk and this and that, compared to assumptions. It's a very, very weird thing. But I believe there should be trade. I mean, you look at DJ in ONE FC, he's fighting Adriano Moraes, another teammate of mine as well, which I was getting him ready. We're helping each other for our last fights. I was supposed to fight Mateus Nicolau, and he was fighting DJ. It was a great time, which I'm very, very excited for both fights, mine and his. But DJ is now getting beat up in ONE FC. There's two reasons why. Well, actually, three reasons why. One, in ONE FC, the weight classes are a little different. So when you say flyweight, it's technically bantamweight. And DJ didn't want to go bantamweight at all in the UFC. That all of his losses were at bantamweight. So he does struggle with bigger guys. His style isn't made for a guy that can handle and catch him, like Dominic Cruz versus him. He beat up Dominic Cruz that whole fight until Dominic Cruz got a hold of him, and then he gets tossed around like a rag doll because he's so much smaller. Two is you look at, okay, so we have the weight. You look at the skill level. Yeah, I think DJ can kill anyone, but it's the fact of now he's fighting some guys who can scrap. DJ has been getting beat up. This is probably the most he's actually taken physically, damage wise, he's ever taken his whole career. Almost after every single fight, he has a black eye. He has some type of bumps and bruises, and these guys are now starting to crack him. And then three is he is getting a little older. He might not be 36, 37, 40 years old, but he's now at the end, if not pretty much done with his prime, and his I guess remarkable heyday is technically over. But that doesn't mean he's not a phenomenal fighter. He could be just like Manny Pacquiao at 40 years old, still beating some of the best in the world, which again is my favorite fighter. But he's still not the Manny Pacquiao of what he was when he was knocking out Ricky Hatton with one punch. So it's a crazy thing that there's a lot of things that play in there. But you look at boxing, and I always tell people, especially with Brave, the promotion that I fight for, because you don't know my opponents does not mean they're not good. You look at Manny Pacquiao. No one knew who he was. He was already a world champ before he fought Litwaba in a 2-week notice in the States, and he knocks him out. No one knew who Manny Pacquiao was. Nevertheless, they didn't even know how to say his last name correctly, and then he knocks out Litwaba. And then he pretty much becomes an A-division world champ. You look at Triple G. He was already on a knockout streak. No one knew who he was until he made his States debut and then knocks out everybody. You look at Lomachenko. No one knew who he was besides people overseas, and he comes to the States and dominates. So it's the fact of because you don't know them does not mean they're not good. And the scarier thing is because you don't know them, they want to be known, and because they're fighting an American or someone who is well established, then they're trying to use you as a pedestal. So they're coming even harder than they probably usually would. So it's crazy how because they're in the UFC does not mean that they're the best in the world, because there's so much more talent and all these promotions paying certain amount of money or giving different negotiation deals and stuff like that. It's I think it's good for the sport, but I believe there should be more trade. I believe there should be higher pay for fighters, and I believe inevitably for those promotions there should be some type of small union to where if I had 3 fights back out on me since last April. So I haven't had a fight since last April. That means no paycheck for me since last April. So I'm running on my savings right now, and it's not like, the things that we do every day. It's not like when we're on TV or doing interviews or, doing whatever is making us money. It's just extra publicity, So it's the fact of our sport isn't exactly like the NFL, MLB, and stuff like that, where we're making money, crazy money outside. Our main money source is, inside the cage. If we're not inside the cage, we don't make any money. Or if we get cut, like I did in the UFC, we don't make any money. So I believe it's good for these promotions to be as competitive as they are with Bellator, UFC, One, Rise, and Brave, all them, and negotiating for the best possible deal for all of us.
So where did Brave come from then, regards to you going over there? Because I remember a story about you previously training with, was it Khabib, and then that was your transition from Titan to the UFC. So let's go into that real quick, then we'll go into the UFC to Brave then. So how were you training with Khabib? Because I remember hearing it on I think it was one of your interviews or podcasts, whatever it was.
So right after I won the last IMF, the Kingdom of Bahrain, it was their first year in 2015 competing at the IMF, and they weren't the best team. It's the first year, and they just didn't do well. In the Middle East, MMA isn't as popular yet. Like, it's popular as a sport, but not as a sport to do. Like, there just isn't much talent, or wasn't much talent at the time. And so the Prince of Bahrain, which was the leader and also the I guess the general of the sports accord there in the Kingdom of Bahrain, he was like, you know what? I want to make my own MMA team. Let's bring some outside people from around the world to build this team, and it's going to help our Bahraini athletes as well. So I had the honor of being one of the people to luckily be on the team with Khabib Nurmagomedov, Frankie Edgar, my coach, Master Bob Shermer, Renzo Gracie, Islam Makhachev, a lot of the Dagestani Eagles, Alejandro Soto, which is a UFC vet, and a couple other guys. And I was like, okay, cool. Like Mohammed Shahid, which is the CEO of Brave. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm on this great team. So James Gallagher, Franz Malambo was on it as well. And we all just had a great time. And I ended up finding Lex McMahon, which is my manager today, and one of the co-owners of Titan FC. He saw me spar with Alejandro Soto, and he was just like, dude, you're pretty damn good. Like I didn't know who you were. Do you want a contract? I said yes, and little we know, a few years later, I ended up being a two belt champion for Titan FC, the first in its history. I did what Conor McGregor did in Cage Warriors, but in Titan he did it at 14-2. I did it at 5-0 with a title defense. Conor McGregor's never defended a title in his life. So it was like, okay, cool. I'm doing some big crazy things that's never been done before. I'm trying to be, Manny Pacquiao in MMA. And then eventually, I convinced Lex to be my manager, and again, a very genuine guy. I do trust him. That was the only reason I wanted to work with him, and I knew obviously he was very, very smart. And he got me into the UFC. We had 2 fights. Sadly, didn't work out well, and the UFC cut me. Now, during that time, I commentated for Brave's first event, and they were like, "Hey, man, do you want to sign with us?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm with Titan at the time before I signed with the UFC, and I didn't know what was going to happen. The Prince of Bahrain wanted to break up the team of KHK and end up making, bring some of those guys up to Brave and make his own promotion. I thought it was maybe going to last a year, and then he was going to be like, you know what? I'm not really as inspired by this as I thought I'd be. I'd rather help people more individually. But he ended up working out really well for the kingdom and for him in general. And he was like, you know what? I like this. Let's keep on doing it. And the promotion got bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time I made it to the UFC, he was very happy with me. He's like, hey, man, I'm proud of you. Glad you're doing your thing. And then I got released, and he's like, I want you on this team. I want you on Brave again. And I was like, well, right now I'm a free agent. I'm negotiating different deals with other promotions. Obviously, if you give me a fair deal, I'm more than happy to oblige. And we ended up negotiating it, and they gave me the best deal out of all the other promotions. And yeah, I'm very happy with where I'm at. Brave is treating me the way I expected to be treated by the UFC, and that's saying a lot.
I mean, that is really refreshing to hear that despite the UFC not living up to expectations, you still managed to find an organization that to give you that kind of respect. Because, as you've said, like all this, for all the fight game isn't as glorious as it always looks from from the outside. It's not always big shiny belts, happy smiles. It's trying to find out where your next paycheck is going to come from, trying to find all this kind of stuff. Look up for your well-being as well, if nothing else, because ultimately you've only got so many miles on the clock. You need to be able to get your money's worth and make sure your family's fed. So it is really good that you found someone who looks out for that, like your best intentions and everything.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's helped out a lot. I'm just glad that I get to speak to Mohammed Shahid and Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the owner and the Prince of Bahrain, and be able to talk with the powerful people and know that if I do have a problem, that I can talk to them and go, hey, what is up with this? May you help me better understand certain situations and what's going to happen next. It's nice compared to the UFC. I was not able to talk to Mick Maynard, Sean Shelby, Dana White. It had to be my manager, and then there's a relay message. So it's one of those things that I never got to talk to people. It ended up being more business than fighter and a boss. It wasn't like a boss and an employee. It was more of like, I don't care what it ended up seeming like slave work, because it was the point of, you're going to fight or you don't. It's like, you take this fight, or here's an ultimatum. You don't take this fight, then you get the hell out of here. So I felt very, very expendable compared to this. I've had to back out twice because of fights. One of them, I ended up getting extremely, extremely sick, and at the same time, while being sick, trying to train, and I ended up taking a very, very bad cut over the eye. So fighting probably wasn't going to be the smartest thing to do. And then this last one, my father passed away, and I was already at the event. They spent the money to take me there. They spent the money to pay for the hotel, and then, day before, 2 days before the fight, I said, I'm not fighting. So it's one of those things that, for them to still honor me the way they do, and give me the respect the way they do, and appreciate me, and really see the side where I'm coming from, where, dude, you're a fighter. It's a business ran by fighters. It's not a business ran by businessmen. It just so happens that these businessmen used to be fighters now. So it's the facts of they're fighters that have gone through multiple situations. So when they see things, come up where fighters have to back out, or certain instances, they understand it. And they go, hey, man, my condolences with certain things, and I hope you can get back to it as very, very, very soon.
See, that makes a lot more sense, because with the UFC as well, it sounds a lot more impersonal. So like, they see you more as a number than an actual person, whereas it seems like Brave have a lot more concern for you, and obviously being able to speak to you. I mean, it sounds pretty shady if you can't speak to the organizer yourself, saying, okay, I want to fight so and so, or I've got this going on, and then they either say, okay, yes or no. instead of them saying, okay, are you going to fight or are you going to get cut? There's no like, it's not a conversation. It's a, do you want to get paid or not? It's good that you've now, again, like I said, found someone more personal who actually looks out for you as a fighter and a person.
Yeah, it's very nice, and it's something that's how it should be. Again, I grew up in the hood. I grew up where I in a place where I needed people, and sometimes people would take full advantage of you. So it's the fact of finding a promotion that is very genuine and actually want to talk and does not care about money. The UFC, they were bought out by what, like six something or $4.6 billion. So whoever bought it needs to make their money back. But Brave, they have the money behind the scenes. They don't have to worry about the money. They're fine with that. They're worried about building people up and making real champions and being able to have fan entertaining fights and have the best fight the best, and also give highlights of places and countries that have never really been highlighted before. They have fights in Romania, they have fights in Sweden, they have fights in Kazakhstan and all these different places to go. You know what? You've never had a big event here? Cool, we're going to bring it to you guys, and we're going to give your fighters an opportunity as well to shine. And the main event and the first event are going to be treated exactly the same. We're not going to give this extreme, like, oh, cool, you're not on the main card. Well, go talk to this other guy. No, everyone talks to the same guy, and everyone gets treated equally the same. And I think that's something that I respect just as much, because that's very, very hard to do.
There is certainly a perfect formula somewhere across these organisations, the best way to deal with these things. Because as much as we'd like this sort of integrity sort of across the board, it's, if you were to say, for example, Conor McGregor saying you're not high enough up the rankings to deserve a title shot when he's doing all this publicity kind of thing, then where's the money going to be made? It's going to be made, it's that kind of business decision. That's where it gets really tricky, because as much as we'd like to have, much like that, like same kind of attention to everyone, that same kind of system, again, it seems to be like I don't know, it's this tricky one. You'd like it in an ideal world at most organisations, but it's good that Brave are making that their mark in that sense of having that fighter concern. Is that the word I'm looking for? Fighter sort of care.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, I'm telling you, they really do help out a lot. And anytime I have a problem, that's something I'm very happy about, is that I can reach out to them and they're going to get back to me as soon as they can.
It's amazing. So before we get into Instagram questions, first of all, shout out to Scott from MMA Monsters for hooking us up, because without him we wouldn't be chatting right now, and he's been an absolute there's no words to describe how helpful he's been when set this podcast up, so shout out, Scott. Now, Instagram questions. I say Instagram questions, most of these are from me anyway, sort of general notes I've made. So regards of different camps you've been with, different people you've been with, how have you found your camp structure? So say like training with like TJ Dillashaw, and then training with like guys at American Top Team and all these kind of guys. What is your training camp often look like, in the sense of during a week, how often are you doing strength work? How often are you doing sparring? What's your general structure?
What's crazy is I'm still trying to find my own with certain things. Like, I've been at American Top Team for 2 years, and I'm now working with a coach. I worked with a handful of coaches there, and I believe all of them are great, but some are, better for me than others. And right now, starting I think it was last March, if not February, I was working with Dean Thomas, and I was traveling with him. And at the time, he worked at ATT. And I mean, I'm still working with him, and I'm happy that ATT is cool with him, even though he decided to part ways with them. So I've been one-on-one with Dean Thomas and working with his kind of small little team where we're kind of like the outcasts at American Top Team. So I get to have a lot more personal work with him, and he really is. We're very in sync with a lot of things. So it's crazy that I noticed that this whole fight career, at least the 4 years that I've been professional, I've been training myself. I've been sparring with some of the best in the world. Whether it's sparring with TJ or trying to beat up Curtis for the fun of it, or sparring Cup Swanson, Juan Archuleta, John Dotson down to Jackson Wink, and a bunch of the guys down there, or going up to Rufus and spar with Sergio Pettis, Rafian Stotts, or going to I think it's Henry Hoof's place. Is it? No, it's Mark Henry's place in Jersey, training with Frankie, Eddie Alvarez, Marlon when he was up there. Now at American Top Team training with, God knows who, there's so many people right now, Barbosa. I've been training with some of the best in the world, but usually I train myself, and then I analyze my own film. But the only problem is I can only get so far in that style so fast. I can only see so many things from my perspective, but you need people's outside perspectives and different points of views. And I have my coach back at home, Master Bob Shermer, but sadly, he has his own gym, so I can't take him everywhere with me, and we just don't have the bodies that are going to help me. So I've been able to find Dean Thomas. I've been working with him practically every day since I've been down here, and he's extremely helped me out a lot and given me a different point of view on a lot of things, and is maybe more MMA oriented, and that's something that I'm very, very appreciative of, because he does it majority from the kind of his heart, and I'm very happy about that. He's a person who grew up in a tough upbringing that wants to help people, and he knows how hard it is to make it in the sport, but he does see the potential in a lot of people, and I'm glad he sees whatever potential I have to possibly be, someone, bigger one day, and I'm very happy about that. So it's crazy how that works, trying to find a coach. So I'm glad I finally have one. And then the other thing is, actually, I do know strength work. I've never been a fan of strength conditioning. I had two places that I really enjoyed. One was in Colorado with TJ. I got super, super jacked because I was pretty much doing what TJ's doing every single day. And you see him, before his fights.
Sorry, I had to say
yeah,
it.
yeah, that and that too. Yeah, great times. And then the last guy was oh man, I can't remember his first name. God damn it, I can't believe it. His name's Goodman, and he's one of the coaches. He's a strength and conditioning coach for the Chicago Blackhawks, the hockey team that we have in Chicago. And he's so extremely smart. If I had him every single day, I'd be a whole different, complete athlete. Like, he is one of, if not the smartest coach for me that I've ever worked with. And yeah, I wish. Oh, Paul Goodman, there you go. I wish I had Paul with me every single day, but sadly, he's back in Chicago working with some phenomenal athletes as well. So, right now I'm doing my thing, but I usually have one hard training in the morning, and then I'm trying to either drill or do a cut weight workout. So I do about 3 workouts a day. What it was for this last camp was, let's say I would do an hour practice with Dean from 9 to 10, working on whatever drills, trying to make something very, very repetitive to sell my brain. Then do whatever hard practice, whether it's MMA sparring, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, some grappling. And then later on the night, I'm doing my own weight cut workout. So it's trying to be as strict as possible, but also try my best to find a smart way to give my body some rest. But I wish I had the strength and conditioning coaches that I want down here. I haven't found someone that I really enjoyed yet. I mean, there's some great people here, but just not right for me. And that's another hard thing. So that's something I'm still trying to figure out now.
I mean, that's a really good point as well. Is like, it's not necessarily the names and the sort of status that as the quality comes from. It's obviously they have their own accolades and their own experience in their own right, but again, it's how you gel, how they understand you, and how they understand your ways of working. Because before you said that, I was about to chime in and ask about Phil Daru, if not you were going to work with him, being ATT as well. But again, if in regards of people you've worked with previously and guys you look to work with, I mean, again, it's open to interpretation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Phil Daru is a smart guy, and he has his own ways. And I mean, I've made a video about him too. I respect the guy to the fullest, and he trains pretty much. If there was 100 guys going to strength and conditioning there, we do have a handful of strength and conditioning coaches there. Almost 80% of the guys go to him. The Brazilians kind of go and lean towards someone else, but overall, Phil pretty much takes care of American Top Team. He ended up just opening up his own gym too, so I'm very happy and proud of him for doing that. Congratulations. But for me, it's never been a huge thing, but I'm sure if Phil gave me a specific plan, which he has before, and it was awesome. I was just extremely exhausted. If Phil probably sat down with me and broke things down like he does with some of the higher athletes, Joanna Jacek, Dustin Poirier, and other people, then yeah, I'd probably work with him every single day because it's broken down specifically for me, compared to the big general. The big general strength and conditioning classes is kind of geared towards everyone. Then maybe I'd work with him. But right now, I prefer more personal work, and I know that guy's super, super busy, so I don't want to try to intrude and make him try to make time for me. He's busy with so many people, and definitely so many, in a sense, higher level people. Let him do his thing, and he's very successful because of it.
The name dropping on this podcast, I mean, the list goes on. The tags. How many people can I tag in this? I've got no idea. Talk to me about fight day sort of psychology and stuff, because obviously, like you were saying earlier, and it's how obviously it wasn't something you wanted to do. It was something you just got good at, and obviously your dad's kind of support with everything with that. So how did you feel, say, because you've had all the amateur fights, all the pro fights, all the titles, all these big events. What are you normally like on game day? Like, talk us through like your amateur debut.
Well, my amateur debut, I was terrified. Because that was actually a fun fact. That was the first time I ever put on MMA gloves. I never really I never really sparred MMA. I actually didn't spar with MMA gloves until I went to Jackson Wink, and I was already at my second professional fight, which is saying a lot. Um, and that's a whole different game. Going from MMA sparring to boxing sparring, or vice versa, it's extremely different. But I was scared because two reasons. One, I got there and I made flyweight, which is 57 kilograms or 125, and my opponent didn't show up. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I already sold tickets. My friends and family are there, and the promoter comes up to me. He goes, hey man, I know your opponent didn't show up. Do you want to bump up to fight 135? Which I was fine with, but I was fighting a guy who was the champion for that promotion in Chicago. Chicago is a big city, so it's some good talent. And he was 5-0, and this was his last fight before he was making his pro debut. So I found out all of his fights, he would knock everyone out in the first round by TKO. So they're like, "Hey, do you want to fight him?" My coach is livid. He's like, "No, this is dumb. Yada yada. Swear word, swear word, swear word." And I was like, "Yeah, I'll take the fight. Why not?" I was a cocky little 18-year-old going like, "Why not? Nothing's gonna happen to me." And that was a time when World Star was just getting big, and
World Star.
people were showing videos of people getting knocked out and going, World Star and all that stuff. So I got nervous, and then I didn't have any MMA gloves, so my friend let me borrow hers, and they're pink MMA gloves. And I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm fighting with some pink MMA gloves." And I
Take us
went out
back
there
a
and
second then. So when you got there for your MMA fight, what were what were you planning to do without MMA gloves?
Well, I was just obviously I was ready to fight, but I thought the commission. This is before like obviously the rules got a little more established and it became big commissions for MMA as for amateurs. They were just like, "Hey man, you bring your own gloves and we'll approve them." I didn't have any gloves. I thought the commission was going to supply us with some, and then my friend let me borrow her pink ones, and I don't know, I'm fighting with pink ones against a guy who was ready to make his pro debut, and before I got in there, I was just so scared. I was so nervous again. Like before I got onto a roller coaster, I was just so afraid of what could happen, and so Final Destination stuff. And I got out there, and it looked like Matt Hughes taking down Frank Trigg, where like he picks him up and runs him across a cage. I was a two-time Muay Thai champ already, and so I threw a 1-2 leg kick, landed perfectly, and out of nowhere the guy takes me down, and I'm like, "Ref, what the? Oh yeah, it's MMA. Damn, I forgot I can do this." And then he just lays on me. I didn't, I was a turtle. Like I'm still a turtle on my back, but I was, like I was like a cockroach. Once you're on your back, that's it. I'm dead. Like I ain't moving anywhere. Just step on me. So, I was stuck there, and he was picking me up, dragging me to the other side of the fence, and dude, I got beat up. So the second round, I'm like, all right, well, let me I can take his punches. I know what he's gonna do. I feel fine. Like, okay, cool. I'm in the zone now. In the second round, I beat him up. Like, I just had to go. But I also broke my foot. I ended up kicking his elbow. I tried to kick him in the head, and he just put out his elbow, and I kicked foot straight to elbow. Broke my foot. And the third round comes. I see my foot's completely huge, and I decide to come out, and we go back and forth. I landed, majority of the strikes. He landed majority of the takedowns, and you know, given we're both hometown guys, but he was a little more popular, and I think that's why he got the decision. But whether or not, I ended up losing my first fight by a split decision. And ever since then, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let me heal, let me recover, and let me take training serious. I was just that kid kind of showing up twice a week, having some fun with MMA classes. That's pretty much about it. And then I took it completely serious, and look where I'm at today. And I think if it weren't for that first loss, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I do believe that everyone should lose, and it is a life changing experience. Even the one in the UFC, it's a life changing experience, not because of the loss, but because of how I lost. I was on a 35 fight winning streak in MMA before I finally lost. So it's one of those things that, one, it does humble you again, and two, because of the reasons of why I lost, I believe, it makes you reassess a lot of things and try to improve your game plan and your tactics and just overall life in general as much as possible.
And that is quite refreshing, actually, hearing how well you took that loss. Because, like, fighting in, you say Muay Thai, like kickboxing, like quite often, like 30, is it 35, as you said, 35 fights undefeated, and then having an MMA fight to then, losing that one. I mean, it wasn't like you got schooled. It sounded like a pretty back and forth kind of thing as well. But how well you took that to then keep going forward and then go on to be, was it IMAF champ, Titan FC champ, and I've seen the Tapology picture of all the belts and everything else. So, it
Yeah,
wasn't exactly a bittersweet ending. So compare that to a more recent fight, say like your UFC debut. What were you like, say fight day for that then? A lot more experience and bigger stakes.
well, that was a little different, because I didn't have a training camp. I went in there in a sense unhealthy, even though I
Oh
was
yeah, this was your
training.
really bad weight cut, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was a really bad weight cut. So by the time I made weight, even my opponent didn't think I was going to make weight. Like that's how uncertain the world was. I was told when I got signed, they're like, dude, just let you know, if you miss weight, we're cutting you. I was like, oh, then why are you even offering me this fight if there's a high chance of me missing weight? Anyways, so it was like the ultimatum type of thing. So I took this fight, and this whole time I'm focusing on cutting weight. And for people who know about cutting weight, it sucks. It 100% sucks, especially the way you have to do it. It's 9 days, 26 pounds. I'm a flyweight. That's almost quarter of my weight. And I I finally make weight, and then fight day comes. I eat as much as possible, as healthy as possible because of my nutrition, or my weight management specialist. And we get to where I want to be, and I feel great. Like I feel physically awesome, but I completely forgot I was fighting. So by the time I get in the cage, and I had 5 title fights back to back to back in Titan, so I wasn't used to walking out first. So by the time I walked out, I'm like, cool, I'm in the cage, like it's awesome. I was waving, I was having a good time. Then I'm in the cage, I'm like, oh damn, I haven't even felt the cage. I haven't even seen the crowd. I haven't done anything. Like I haven't prepared myself mentally for this, physical warfare that's about to happen. And then he's walking out. That's a whole other dude. That's like an extra 7 minutes, until the fight starts, and not 10 minutes until the fight starts. So it's like I had all this hype going in first, and then you have to wait 10 minutes and try your best to keep yourself hype. And I'm looking at my family in the crowd. I'm like, hey, what's like? I can see them because that was the very first fight in the card. There's not many people there, so I'm like, oh, cool. I see my family. I know where I'm at, and I'm nervous because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I have to fight. I forgot this was part of the job. Like I thought I made weight. Cool, pay me, And I got in there, and Jared Brooks was an opponent I thought I could easily beat, and I still do today. But I didn't have a training camp for him, and I wasn't prepared for him whatsoever. No, nevertheless, the moment. So when I got in there, I got beat up, and I think in the first round I got dropped, and I was like, even actually, I think about it today. Even in the post fight interview, they're like, "Dude, how'd you feel about that spinning back fist?" I'm like, "He didn't hit me with a spinning back fist. That was a right hand." And I watched the fight later. I'm like, "Oh wow, it really was a spinning back fist. Damn." So it's one of those things that um, I wasn't prepared for the moment, and then when I finally won in the very awkward way that I did, which is crazy because I caused the knockout, but it wasn't intentional. If that makes sense, like what I did cause the knockout, but it wasn't my intent to knock him out that way. That wasn't at all the case. That was just a very, very poor rookie mistake for him. He in college, when somebody picks you up like that, you try to make a parallel line, pretty much all together. You hold on. In judo, that's what you do. You hold on.
Mm.
And in wrestling, if somebody picks you up like that, if somebody locks your hips the way I do, you're supposed to go down to your knees and fall to your side, and there creates a little bit of a scramble. He decided to try to throw me and or slam me and go back. Excuse me, to
Bless
go
you.
back. And thank you. And my legs fell on top of his head, and it was just a really rookie mistake. It just so happened to rock him when he landed. I was like, okay, well, sorry, man, I got to finish the job, and I'll take the win. And it sucked because I was happy that I won, but after that fight, everyone's like, he won by a lucky knockout, and this and that, and it's like, thanks. When I've worked so hard to be into the UFC, and then by the time I made it, I got extremely belittled, and then I really wanted to fight again, and I got the Alex Perez fight, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted the Alex Perez fight. I was fine with that, but I wanted it later on in September, in October, with an actual training camp. They told me 20 days before the fight, they go, hey, man, you take this fight. If not, you fight next year, and next year does not mean January. Next year can mean December. So this was in July when they told me. So I'm like, oh, well, I got to fight. So I took this fight, another extreme weight cut. I was 28 pounds in 20 days. So I was about 54 pounds, give or take, in about a little more than a month's time. So it was about like 40, no, it was a little less than 2 months time. So I lost almost a pound a day if you want to do the math right. And for a flyweight, that's more than a quarter of my weight. Anyways, I go in there. I was so mentally drained that I just wanted to go home. And eventually, I lost the way I did. That it tarnished my resume. It tarnished a lot of things about me, and it still like fears and things that I still my demons that I face today. Where, that fight will even if I redeem that fight 20 times, that fight will always haunt me. It's one of those things that it sucks. That fight, I freaked out too because when I got in the crowd, I fought in the Staples Center. Yeah, I remember looking to my family and I couldn't see them because it was so packed. And I was like, damn it, I want to just say hello to my family, kind of that reassurance. And I couldn't see them. It was another reason why I freaked out during the fight and shut down the way I did. But it's crazy again how mental this sport is. But under the lights, I wasn't worried about it. Under the lights, for me, it could be no one in the crowd or everyone in the crowd. I'm still fighting the same person. He's still trying to do the same exact thing to me. So it's a crazy experience, but it depends on your emotions and how you handle it. TJ Dillashaw is phenomenal at using whatever pressure and molding it into diamonds. Some people completely fold under pressure, pretty much like I did against Alex Perez. So it's the fact of what's going to happen and how you handle it.
Now, there's so many things to talk about in this, but let's go on the Alex Perez fight then. So was that Dillashaw Garbrandt 2, wasn't it? Were you training
Yeah.
at with Dillashaw for that camp?
No, I was. I already left his camp. I was with American Top Team for the Jared Brooks fight and then the Alex Perez fight as well, and I've been with them ever since. I was with American Top Team on my last Titan FC fight in January, and I've been with them ever since. But it was definitely a very very different camp. I ended up going to ATT by accident. I went there as like a temporary thing because I was like, oh, TJ just had his kid. I love training with TJ. It's extremely hard. Plus, he does like me, which I'm very fortunate about that. He would take me and pretty much in a sense pay for me to go to his strength and conditioning programs and his jiu-jitsu private sessions, and because I was his one of his main sparring partners, so it was amazing. I pretty much got to tag along with him and train like a champion, and I felt like when I trained with him for the Sherpa fight, that was probably one of the best camps I've ever had. Same thing with Pedro Nobres. Same thing with Gleason Jesus. All guys that I was able to finish besides the Sherpa fight. But I was able to finish that fight, or excuse me, finish the whole fight in general by decision with a broken hand and torn MCL. Like that's how great the camp was. Like I was able to just push through all that stuff. I was at American Top Team, and I went there because TJ just had a baby. So I was like, oh, he's busy with his family. He's not going to train. I need another gym for a little bit. And then after that camp, I was going to leave, and I was like, man, this is actually a really good camp. I've never had so many bodies. For small guys and heavyweights, it's the hardest to find bodies. But in the middleweights, there's always people there. It's the average person. So for me, there's always someone to go with. It's not like somebody had a kid and then they couldn't train anymore. So I always had somebody to go with, and there were so many amazing coaches. And I've been able to build a family at American Top Team, so I'm very happy. But I built families, and I have friends pretty much at all the high level gyms that I've been at. And I always still want to travel more, and I still want to do more things. But time will tell. I'm very happy with American Top Team right now.
I mean, that itself is really refreshing to hear, that like lack of sort of politics on that side, because obviously when it comes to the elite of the elite and that highest sort of level, that training in these rival camps, as it were, you'd imagine there'd be a lot of friction, but the fact like they're so welcoming on both sides of it is really good to hear. And the fact like TJ was that supportive of you as well to try and get you involved as much as he did, I mean, that it must be quite surreal though, like training with all of these guys as well.
Oh no, it's amazing. I'm telling you, I got to train and meet some of the highest level people in the world. Whether the men, women, Michelle Watterson, John Jones, Curtis Blades, Cerrone, both Pettis brothers. I mean, just the list goes on. Some of my idols, some of the people that end up being future stars, some of the people that at the end of their careers, beginning of their careers, so I've all the people that I've been able to spar with have helped me become the man and athlete I am today, and I appreciate all of them. Whether they took me because they were genuine enough to help me, or they took me because they needed the help, and it so happened that I was that person helping them. Regardless, it was awesome. The camaraderie in the sport is very different. You look at TJ is very understanding when it comes to that, especially because he was gone. But if you look at TJ with um, damn, what was the gym? Alpha Male.
Yeah.
When he left, they left on bad terms. Me, I've left many gyms. I've left. Technically, I wasn't a part of them, but like Rufus Sport, Jackson Wink, Training Lab, Muscle Farm, Dwayne Ludwig's gym, Team Elevation, um, Mark Henry's gym and KHK. Like I've been with many, many great gyms and competitors and coaches. Like I have nothing bad to say. I mean, there's always bad stuff to say, but you know what I mean? I have nothing that's discouraging and go, I'd never go back there again, or I never want to do this again. Like I'm very, very appreciative of everything they've been able to teach me and give me and things I still utilize today. And I miss all the relationships I've been able to acquire with all those places I've been to. But it's a journey, man. Mixed martial arts is a crazy thing. You're not going to learn it all from one person or all from one gym. That would be amazing, but you also got to enjoy life while it lasts. And for me, I travel, but you have businesses, gigantic businesses, where they want to bring you in and utilize you and use your name. Cool, that's great. But for me, if I get to train and do what I need to do while giving you what you want, like using the name or whatever the case may be, or you're just a genuine gym or camp, then awesome too. But for me, I don't care what people think. I don't care what people say. Oh, he's a gym hopper or he's this, he's that, dude. I'm trying to make myself the best MMA fighter I can possibly, make myself. And if you don't want to be a part of that, then okay, let me know. I'll go somewhere else, and somebody else will be more than happy to let me in.
I think that honesty and transparency really comes through as well. The fact you are this honest, upfront person, the fact you can say you've been to all those different places and you haven't got anything bad to say, I mean, that says it all, really, doesn't it? Like, a lot of people, I can't help feel, bring that on themselves almost, that kind of, they leave on bad terms almost because they decided to, a little bit. Like, oh, I don't want to be with you guys or whatever reason it is, but it's just good that you've managed to keep that level of respect with all those sort of different people.
Yeah. I look at it this way. Like one of my things, like for example, there's not many people I hate, and for obvious reasons. But there are many people I dislike, and some people much more than others. But you have to look at there's probably reasons why I dislike you, because maybe I made you that close to me or let you that close to me, and to let you and bring you in that close to me, it had to be for a good reason. So whatever good reasons it started with, I am super appreciative of, because again, it's helped me become the person I am today. But for whatever reason we ended, so be it. Problems happen. If I so happen to be happy somewhere else, it's kind of like a relationship with an ex-girlfriend. It's like, oh, you know what? I hate your guts, but man, everything before that was amazing except for the end. Then cool. I appreciate all the time, the positive time you gave me. Forget the rest of this. So be it. I'm happy with somebody else, or I'm happier now by myself, and that's it. You can't hold these grudges. I get that forgiveness is divine and we're not gods, but hey, man, we have to someone act a little genuine as well, and just appreciate the moments that we had.
Uh, there's just so many things to talk about here, but I'll let you get on with your day. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you, Jose?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. So a couple places people can find me. And again, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that people have. I do answer all my requests. Instagram, Jose Shorty Torres, and Twitter and Facebook, Shorty Torres MMA. And if people want to help me, I have my own Team Shorty Foundation. It's called, the website is teamshorty.com. 100% of the proceeds on my website of all my merchandise goes to my foundation to help keep kids, teens, and young adults off the streets inside the gym, going to tournaments, buying them MMA gear, paying for their gym memberships, and it's all a pay-it-forward program. I don't sponsor athletes, kids, and teenagers just because they're good, and that's never actually my intent whatsoever. I sponsor them because they are genuine people, and they pay it forward in their community as well. So I help pretty much as much as possible genuine people who want to help others that never got much of a return back. So I in a sense pay forward to them. So if you guys want to help, teamshorty.com. Really appreciate the support, and everything does ship worldwide, and that's why I do say with all the help we can, we will, together we are Team Shorty, and I appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Links to all those will be in the description, and this episode is sponsored by Mauler MMA. Type in FC MMA 20 at checkout to get 20% off on all Mauler products.